Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Google Analytics and accesso Showware. My name's Joe Wetstead. I'm Vice President of Client Services, and I'm joined today by our in-house Google Analytics aficionado, Martin Spear. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items so you know what to expect and how to participate in today's webinar. You may have already noticed that your voices have been muted. You will have the opportunity to type questions into that window, and they will be addressed at the end of the webinar. So let's get started. At accesso, we believe technology has the power to redefine the guest experience. Everything we do starts with thinking about the guest experience first, which allows us to help simplify operations, improve guest satisfaction, and drive growth for our clients. To accomplish this, accesso focuses on research and development. It's a major point of differentiation for our products. In 2018, accesso was able to invest over $29 million directly back into R&D across its platforms. And honestly, that's equivalent to some of our competitors' entire annual revenues. We invest heavily in the products because our industry demands it, because the clients, you, benefit from it, and because it makes a positive difference in the guest experience. Innovation is core to our business and our partnerships, and it's part of our commitment to the clients that our software continue to evolve to meet new demands. accesso serves many core markets, from theme parks to performing arts, zoos to festivals. Our products and services support attractions around the globe. Whether it be food and beverage point of sale, virtual line reservations, ticketing, or guest management, our solutions help streamline and simplify operations for a wide variety of venues. So the accesso Showware product specifically serves a variety of live entertainment venues around the globe. Our accesso Showware ticketing suite offers a complete range of software solutions to empower venues to take full control of their own ticket sales. With solutions for box office, kiosk, online, mobile, call center, and social media, the accesso Showware solution enables venues to easily control their operations, set fees, and increase overall profitability. There's lots of opportunities to achieve wins with the accesso Showware platform, and many of these relate to accessing data. With the right report or combination of reports, you will have the power to turn that data into actionable insights. Today, we look outside the Showware reporting suite, and we're going to explore Showware and Google Analytics integration. There's so many quotes about the power data affords us, and so many lessons. The great decisions that can be made from mining and understanding data is important. The strange thing I find is very few people or organizations take the time to seize that opportunity. Information is there, it's there for you to reap the rewards and the insights. So how can data help your business grow? First, understand what kind of first impression you make. Google Analytics will let you see how many people visited your website, but eventually bounced, which means they didn't find what they were looking for. This tool will show you which pages are experiencing a high bounce rate and which ones are exceeding expectations. Second, figure out where your users are coming from a geographical location. This is really important in doing business, and that is exactly the information Google Analytics provides you with. Knowing the location of your users helps you design specific marketing campaigns and set goals for that area. And finally, set concise goals and target new patrons more effectively. Determine what to offer next. After seeing all of this information on Google Analytics and understanding what makes your visitors tick, you can use that information to offer new and interesting things, products, services, content, all brand new and designed specifically for your users based on the data that you've gathered and analyzed. So accesso Showware has an extensive amount of options and tools to improve reporting in Google Analytics and make setup and deployment an easy and reliable process. We've taken the time to develop a robust data layer which feeds Showware-specific information directly into Google Analytics and a few other platforms to make the most of the tools Google Analytics has to offer. In almost all cases, Google Analytics has a very brief setup time, with most setups being live on production the same day or at longest the day after. So a brief overview for those participants that aren't completely familiar with what Google Analytics does. At its core, Google Analytics serves as a tool to gather information about your users and how they interact with your website and the products that you're offering. With it, you can determine things like how long the average user views your site before purchasing, what point in the purchase process are users abandoning your site, where are users coming from, which traffic sources are most productive, visitor demographics, and even things like how well marketing campaigns are working and how much revenue they're generating. Google Analytics sits between the user and your website and web stores and stores a massive amount of information about interactions and the users themselves. Further, in addition to collecting the information, Google Analytics provides various tools to generate reports on your site's performance and user information. Google Analytics provides a number of built-in reports for everything from revenue earned to which cell phone your users visited on. In almost every case, these reports can be combined to generate unique reports, such as how much revenue was generated by users with iPhones. And a decision you might come to with this data point is that that data can be analyzed and broken down, and should we invest the time enabling the accesso Showware Apple Wallet integration? And by the way, the answer to that question is almost always yes. So what do you need? In order for us to set up analytics on your accesso Showware system, you only need a Google account, which is free, and to log into Google Analytics with that account. In the admin section of your analytics account, you'll find a UA tracking code, which will be something like UA-8 digits -1. This number is all that's required to get analytics up and running on your accesso Showware system. It's noteworthy that if you use analytics on your own website, simply using the same UA property may not be the best solution. In this case, it would be best to contact your CSM to tailor a solution that best fits your needs. But more often than not, this just requires communicating to them that your website domain also shares the same UA tag as your accesso Showware system. So at this point, I am excited to hand things over to Martin Spear. And Martin's going to take us through the end of the webinar with some great insights. And Martin, here you go. And Martin, you might be muted.
Muted. Sorry about that. Thanks a lot, Joe.
That's okay. Great. Welcome, Martin. And yeah, let's move on. Thanks.
Thanks. So what can Google Analytics do for you, and how can we use it to improve sales? Google Analytics lets us see a vast amount of information that's not usually available in typical Showware reports. Stuff like the number of visitors on your site at a given moment, the conversion rates for those visitors, all the way through to insights into why users didn't convert and where they came from. This allows us to adjust our marketing strategies to fit our users and the experience that they're having. This should lead to an improved marketing strategy overall. And it's always important to know what marketing is successful versus what isn't. Google Analytics gives us a more precise indication of campaign success by allowing us to objectively compare the value of a marketing campaign over organic traffic. This helps us make decisions on where to market and if specific marketing is required. For instance, a performance or product may have really high organic traffic already, indicating a lot of interest. And we may not need to market for that product because we can tell right away that it's already going to sell out. Conversely, the traffic may be much lower than expected, indicating that we may need to market where we didn't think we needed to originally because interest is not as high as we'd expected. Analytics lets us determine where users are coming from and whether or not we should market there. What sources have the highest value? We can take a look at the users coming from specific sites, determine how many of them convert and what the average value of those conversions are, and determine an actual dollar value for each user that comes to our site, which can be very useful in determining what kind of marketing campaigns we want to run. Altogether, this improves the user experience. If we're marketing to the right people, they show up, they're here for the product that they expected to see, it's a product that they're interested in, and that alone is a huge boost in the user experience. But in addition, as Joe had mentioned, we get to see more about the user experience, the process that they go through once they arrive on the site. What are they looking at? What are they interested in according to their interactions with our site? This can improve insight into things like, are the coupons that we're offering interesting to our users? Are they trying to use coupons that don't exist anymore? Are they trying, are a lot of users using coupons and then leaving after they've already entered the coupons? Or are people clicking on my packages and promotions? Or are they just ignoring those outright? Do I need to advertise those things better? So let's jump into the demo. And this is Google Analytics. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this, and for those of you that haven't, this is the landing page for it, which basically contains some kind of snapshots of a few regular reports inside of analytics. We'll jump into one of the coolest reports, which is the real-time view. So real-time reporting lets us see at this very moment the number of users that are on our site and what they're doing. What pages are they on? Where did they come from? We can see the referrals over here on the left, and the pages that they're looking for on the right here, and the page views per minute. How active are they on the site? Very cool stuff. Always fun to look at. Within the real-time reporting, though, there's traffic sources here, which can be very useful if we've just launched an ad campaign. Traffic sources show us the medium that this came from, and if we've set up an ad campaign and we're transmitting that data to Google, we can see here right away how much interest that ad campaign is garnering, and potentially, if needed, we can make changes immediately about or to that ad campaign to make it more successful or meet our expectations. Maybe it's outperforming and we don't need to invest as much money in that ad campaign, or maybe it's underperforming and we need to figure out how to adjust that ad campaign to be more successful or meet expectations at least. Audience reports tells us information about user engagement, stuff like the number of users we've had over a specific period of time. And this might be a good moment to tell you that you can always narrow down reports by specific times. It's always good to figure out what snapshot is best for you. And so we can look at specific information about times that are valid. We may have a lot of performances on sale for a specific period and not for another, in which case conglomerate of all that time may not be very useful, but looking at the specific snapshot of the time when we did have things on sale, much more useful. So we can look at here in audience view, we can look at things like how many pages does the average user look at per visit, indicating how engaged they are on the site, how long do they spend on the site, how long does it take them to check out, things like that. And then bounce rate, which is a big number. We'll probably talk a lot about bounce rate, which doesn't necessarily indicate that users like didn't like the site. It's usually more of an indication of, am I marketing to the right people? If my bounce rate is really high, it means that maybe my marketing campaigns are reaching people who aren't actually interested in the product. So they're clicking on the ads by accident. Maybe my ad campaign's not as valid as I thought it was, or just the product that they're getting to isn't what they expected for some reason. If my bounce rate, on the other hand, is very low, it might indicate that I'm not marketing enough or that I'm not marketing broad enough. If all of the people who are showing up at my site are making purchases, then I'm not marketing to people who don't know about my product, which is a big part of marketing. And obviously this is going to be different for each individual product and each demographic, all these things. So it's very important to look at the snapshots, based on your needs, which there is more information here. Technology lets us look at people based on their specific browser and OS. We can look at very specific technology or technology, how do you say that? We can look at users based on their technological savvy, I guess. And we can look at people based on which devices they're visiting on, which could be really valuable in determining whether or not I need to design a specific app for my venue, or do I need to design an iPhone only one, or do I actually have to pay attention to Android? The answer to that's always yes, by the way. I'll plug for Android. Acquisition tells us how users got to our site, which is an enormous value in marketing. Where did they come from? Were they direct traffic? Were they organic? Was it a referral? And all of these reports and analytics can and should be drilled into, kind of like dig deeper and start to look at the things. So if we clicked on the social source there, we can look at this channel, and we see the different sources here, which in this case for this view are Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Instagram again. And we can see here, this is a good example that Instagram has visitors. They do convert. They are interested in the product. The conversion rate, which you can see over here, for Facebook is much higher, and Instagram being much lower, but we only got a very small number of users. So it may, based on this report alone, may be an indication that some advertising on Instagram might be called for. And we can at least determine from the average order value and the conversion rate how much a click is worth, how much we can expect to get from a click in a dollar value. So if we go back to the overview, you'll see that there's an enormous direct traffic thing here. What that means is that no referral information was passed when the user landed on the site. And this is common for things like mobile apps, where a user's privacy is kind of something that's more important for various reasons. And what we do in analytics is we set up campaigns, which allow us to track user traffic through these different sources and channels. But campaigns, quite honestly, is a completely, it's a whole other webinar. It's a very big topic. It's not incredibly complex. It's just there's a lot to it. But if you've ever clicked on a link and seen in your browser in the URL something like UTM underscore and then some information, that's usually an analytics campaign where someone's trying to pass into analytics where otherwise wouldn't be passed in. What exactly engaged this user? Was it an email campaign that I sent out, or was it an Instagram ad? So all of those are set up in the admin end, and then they all show up under acquisition, and can be very useful for lowering this number to get a more precise indication of where people are coming from. Behavior reports tell us where users go on the site, what they do. We can see here what the top pages visited are. Again, the bounce rate. And one of the most useful reports in analytics, especially from a developer perspective, but from all perspectives, I think, is this behavior flow, which basically we can see where do most people land on our site, where is traffic being driven to. In this case, for this view, they're being driven to the event performances page. 46% immediately drop off, which is that bounce rate that we see, or part of it. And then the vast majority of them go through to the order tickets page, which is what we'd expect. They're going from an event listing to a performance listing, and moving forward in the checkout process. And in this view, if we look, we see that the process seems to make a lot of sense, that they're just kind of going through the order tickets page and then getting to reCAPTCHA and then going in to select some seats and then presumably going on to check out. We'd had a football club client who benefited greatly from this report. They had a lower than average conversion rate, or much lower than they expected, to say the least. And we were trying to figure out what was the cause of this. And it was easy to point fingers at things like pricing and stuff like that. But when we looked at this report, it was apparent that people were getting stuck on the order tickets page. And when we went to that page on their site, their seat map had these promotions. The image behind the seat map had these promotions in it for basically different packages and stuff like that, kind of let people know that those existed. The problem was that they looked like clickable buttons. And so it looked like what was probably happening is that people were getting to that page rather than selecting a section. They were trying to get to these promotions and clicking on them, but they weren't clickable. And so the user would get frustrated or confused and either call the venue or just stop altogether. So what we did is we had the image updated, and sure enough, that drop off and rerouting kind of disappeared, and the conversion rates went up, and the user was able to do much, or the client was able to get much better conversion rates. So huge success there, and there are other indicators. For instance, if you were to see that the event performances page led to this order tickets page, but this big chunk here was leading to the event back to the event performances page, would indicate that for some reason users are getting stuck in this loop. And then we could figure out, why is that? Is it because the maybe the performance description is incredibly long and difficult for people to understand, and they're just calling the venue, or they're going back to try and figure out what's going on in the event? Maybe there's a conflict. Maybe the event name and the performance name are so different that they're not sure that they're still on the same thing. But this is a very useful report for kind of diving into those, answering those questions. And then obviously conversions, the e-commerce report being one of the most used in all of analytics, which just tells us what is the conversion rate, how many of my users that visit actually turn into sales, what is the average cost of an order, total revenue, transactions, all the stuff. Most of this, with the exception of the conversion rate, obviously is available in reporting within Showware. But when we combine this in custom reports with stuff that we've looked at earlier, like specific demographics, specific types of users, it becomes a very powerful tool to start deciding how to market better. And Joe had mentioned that there is some integration in Showware, which there is. One of the larger parts of that is that we have product SKU here, which is going to be the performance code and the section name and the pricing code. It's kind of actually easier to see if I go back and show you here, which can give you an indication of exactly what the performance of a specific section. You can combine these in custom reports to get an entire performance, but just one pricing code to see what the performance of that specific pricing code was, which allows for much more granular decisions to be made about pricing. You can make decisions about pricing based on a lot more information than just, did we sell? And that can be hugely beneficial, I'm sure. There's also much larger strokes you can take, like the product category is just the event, and the product itself, I believe it's just performance itself, which we list as a name. So, and then obviously source and medium goes back to what we were talking about before, which is where did the user come from and what kind of conversion rates do we see from that kind of source. So we can see specific promoters, how well they've done. And speaking of promoters, they also advertise, and sometimes the conversion rate for a show may be rather low, or the conversion rate for the site overall may be rather low as a result, not of anything other than an oversaturation of marketing for one specific show, which is another reason why these like very narrow targeted reports are much more valuable in determining user engagement and stuff like that than just a broader report, just like what's my overall conversion rate. Might be, you know, really low because of a promoter marketing to just everyone on earth, but that should be fine if he sold a lot of tickets in the process. So I think that concludes the demo part. Oh, actually, if I can go back. Sorry about this. Back on the home page, I just wanted to briefly touch on insights as well. I'll talk in a moment about how to get the most out of analytics briefly, but analytics actually has kind of built that in, which is this insights section over here. And if you have analytics already and haven't looked into this, I think it's a great place to go to actually drive some of the questions that analytics can answer. I mean, in that they're actually kind of listed out for you here. And you know, clicking on these will bring up some, you know, information like basically these mini reports, and then once this is brought up, just kind of going through that analytics stuff or that insight stuff, I find that it can drive some really useful questions when trying to figure out what reports I need to generate myself, or what information am I interested in. Which brings us to this point, which is there's a huge amount of data on analytics. It collects everything from users' age all the way to how much money they spend on your site. So just an enormous amount of data. So it's always good to approach analytics with specific goals. So asking yourself, what am I interested in doing? What am I trying to do, or at least with this session in analytics? Am I trying to improve sales? If I am, and is there any reports and analytics that I can use to figure out why I'm not getting sales? I can look at my bounce rate and maybe determine that my marketing's not up to par or not what I would expect. Or I can look at the conversion rates and try to figure out if users are trying to select coupons. Maybe my my checkout, my purchase flow is too long or confusing. Or maybe I'm trying to improve that. Maybe I'm trying to improve the overall engagement, and I can look at the reports like the behavior flow that we looked at and try and figure out like where users are engaged. And then obviously also I can be trying to look at my marketing and how to improve basically the return on that marketing. And we can look at the specific campaigns, the sources, which show us how successful that marketing campaign was, and how much revenue did it generate, and the value of each of those clicks. Can I up my bid rate for clicks and still turn a profit? And then obviously always ask relevant questions to qualify that goal. Like, does my conversion rate make sense? I perhaps marketed a lot, and that may have driven down my conversion rate, but that might be fine because that's in line with my marketing expectations. Or maybe my conversion rate is really high, and that doesn't make a lot of sense. And I didn't sell. I got a really high conversion rate, but didn't sell all of my product. In which case, I might need to be marketing more. Also look at whether or not my conversion rates are changing, and is there something I can do to fix that change, or is that change good? Can I keep it up? Am I doing the right things once we make the changes that we've determined we need to make? Look at the effect. Again, am I marketing enough? Am I marketing to the right audience? And back to the bounce rates again, which are incredibly useful. And you know, but I'll also look at those bounce rates in the global picture and whether or not they make sense. You know, just a very high bounce rate might not necessarily be a bad situation for the right product if the conversion value is really high, and so you're marketing to as many people as possible with little regard for the cost of an individual click, because the profit from a sale is high enough, then bounce rates will be higher, and that's fine. That's what we should expect. We'd also look at other devices that I need to be marketing to. Are there specific types of users, specific, like am I marketing specifically to PC users for some, Comic-Con or something like that? What are my users on? What are the ones that are buying my product? What are they using? How are they engaging my site? Or on what technology? And can I market to that technology better? And finally, are there specific pages that aren't working, and why? Are my users getting stuck or dropping off on a specific page? And is there something I can change to make that better? So that's our presentation for today that covers Google Analytics. At this point, we're going to open up our Q&A. Lynette, do we have any questions that already been submitted?
Thank you, Martin. We actually do have a few questions. Our first question is, once I activate my Google Analytics, is it possible to access data from the past?
Good question. No. Unfortunately, analytics only starts collecting, well, I don't know if it's unfortunate, but analytics only starts collecting data from the moment that you put it on your site. So, I mean, if you were to put an analytics tag on your site today, we wouldn't be able to then later go and look at data from 2 months in the past. So you would be, it is possible to take internal showware reports and kind of compare those to some of the analytics reports and get some rough ideas. And we've done that in the past for clients. And if that is something that you need, we can kind of dig into that. You can just ask your CSM.
Perfect, thank you. Our next question is, when looking at conversion data, what is the best time frame or time window to define?
So as when we were going over the e-commerce reports, I had pointed out that you can narrow by product, and again, that's how we probably want to approach most reporting on a per product basis. So once we've determined what product we're going to narrow it down to, hopefully the time frame becomes obvious. I mean, we have the day that the show was announced or the product was announced, and then the day that the product finished selling. We should be able to get our time frame from that. But obviously, depending on your question or your goals, time frames can be different. Often the time frame is a comparison. What was March of last year like versus what is March of this year like? How has it changed, and is that any indication, or does that fit with the changes that I've made to my business?
Perfect. And the next question is, how does Tag Manager or G-Tag fit into Google Analytics?
That's also a good question. Tag Manager and G-Tag are both they're management solutions for things like analytics. So there are many tracking tags and many marketing and remarketing tags and stuff like that. And so those can get kind of into a mess. And Tag Manager and G-Tag both help you organize those into better and more. They help you organize them better. And they also have the benefit of being like this bucket that you can dump all of that in, and then the user loads your site. And once the site is completely loaded, Tag Manager is smart enough to then dump that bucket out on the site, so that all of your tracking and tag information is presented to the user after they've already gotten all the information that they wanted. This way, that it doesn't seem slow or it doesn't get in the way of your users. This can be really important if you have, say, 40 tags to drop on your individual site. I would throw a little plug in here for Tag Manager. We use Tag Manager in Showware. We're integrated with it, and there's a lot of flexibility there that allows us to set up tags for like specific performances or specific promoters or whatever at a much quicker, and makes the whole process a lot less painful. Oh,
Great,
I should
thank you.
actually, one more thought. I should mention that Tag Manager itself and G-Tag, they don't really do anything all by themselves. If you were to just put them on your site, they don't collect any data. They don't present anything. They don't change the load speeds or anything like that. They're completely benign by themselves. They're just empty containers that sit on your site.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Our next question is, how can we ensure that direct traffic sources aren't inflated? Our specific venue has seen direct traffic at 90%, which we know isn't accurate. Believe we might need to add maybe UTM data to links. Can you explain this a little bit further?
Absolutely. So yeah, you're correct. The links that people are clicking on to get to your site, 90% is very high, by the way. And the links that people are clicking on to get to your site, probably from your greatest source, for some reason don't have referral information attached to them. Like I said, that could be that they're using a mobile app that doesn't support referral information, which is very common. And yeah, the method around that is to engineer links that have tracking information attached to them. So we've been working on a solution for that within Showware itself, so that you can just like copy out a link, but that's not even actually in progress yet. So for now, you kind of have to set those up yourself. And in analytics, in the admin area, you'll see areas that you can set up campaigns. And once you've set up the campaign, it becomes pretty apparent how to generate those links and what I need to attach to the end of those links before I post them on social media. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to drive down any direct traffic links that are generated from, say, user A goes and finds your site, copies the link themselves, and then plugs it into their social media and tells people that they think it's cool, and then they end up making purchases. It's going to show up as direct because we can't control what other users do. And direct traffic is always going to be pretty high, but yeah, 90% is higher than average, and could be corrected somewhat by engineering better links.
And Martin, you had mentioned also the higher your mobile traffic, the higher you can expect that result to be, because a lot of mobile devices strip out that for privacy reasons.
Yeah, it's if you're seeing a 90% and you see that 80% of your users are mobile, that's part of what's happening there. But it doesn't happen very often on desktop browsers. They usually pass along referral information. It's just normal. But yeah, on mobile it's much higher. So a high mobile traffic, or high amount of mobile traffic and a high direct traffic usually go side by side.
Lynette, let's ask the follow-up question there first.
Okay. So excuse me, the next question would be, I imagine it's the
follow-up. I can, here, I'll just take it. So follow-up to direct traffic question is, what if we're using DoubleClick click trackers for our campaigns? Sorry. The whole question didn't seem, oh, hold on. Created, let's see, sorry, it just, assume we created UTM links to then bring them into DoubleClick.
Yeah, that should work just fine. Yeah, it should. To be honest, I'm gonna let you know that I'm not super familiar with DoubleClick. I mean, I'm familiar with it, but I'm not super familiar with the functions and workings of DoubleClick. So I don't want to make any promises that I can't keep on DoubleClick's behalf. But that should work just fine. So when you create like a Facebook ad and you put your link in the Facebook ad, Facebook's going to try to pass that information forward, obviously, because Facebook wants credit. But if the ad, you should still put the UTM information in there for that campaign, so that information like, not only this is a Facebook ad, but this is about the campaign I did for, Joe Dirt or something like that, indicating that, if you had traffic from a campaign for show A and show B sold tickets under that campaign, that was a really successful campaign, and we probably want to look at how to duplicate that information. I kind of got off topic there. But yes, it should work if you add the UTM traffic. Now that said, I think DoubleClick does already add campaign and referral information to their links. So maybe you just need to enable on them. Maybe you should check into that and see if there's a way to enable or indicate to them that you have analytics and are tracking conversions through analytics.
Good enough. Awesome.
Perfect. And our next question is, I have a Google Analytics account and can see many of the reports, but not the e-commerce/conversion data report.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to provide you folks with something that would enable that?
Mm-hmm. So there's two kinds of e-commerce. We support both. The standard e-commerce is the one that we were looking at during the demo. And in that one, you have to go into the admin section of analytics, and you do have to enable it there. If that's already done, which we'll assume it is, then you may need to talk to your CSM to let them know that your conversions aren't passing through. The anatomy of an analytics tag is that there's a UA tag, which is just a general tag that passes an event type called a page view. And then there's another one that passes an event type called a purchase. But we only do the purchase event on, when a user actually makes a purchase. So that all has to be set up, and it's possible that just the page view was set up for your account, and all we need to do is add the purchase tag, or just check that it's firing correctly.
Great, thank you. And then our last question is there an additional cost to have this set up or added to our site?
Martin, I can take that. So the short answer is, just setting up basic Google Analytics and getting things started. And most of what we've talked about today, there is not an extra charge. If you kind of, get past the basic setup and want to get a little more advanced with placing the containers on your site for GTag and Tag Manager, we can. Based on the sophistication, we can train somebody in your organization to be able to use those, or if we do it for you, it's not a big task, it's not a long task, so it's not expensive, but there could be a charge in that regard. But just setting up basic Google Analytics and getting it working for you, and basically, doing what Martin showed today, that's all part of your showware software. And you would just reach out to your CSM. I think that's it there, Lynette.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Joe and Martin, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar, Unlocking the Secrets in Your Ticketing Data. If we didn't have the chance to address your question, we will follow up with you individually. And if you have any other questions or would like to learn more about our accesso showware solution, please contact us at sales@accesso.com. We'll be sending out the link to view the recording within the next day. And on behalf of accesso, Martin, Joe, and myself, thank you again for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.